Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
That night, heavy rain poured down. Apart from a few hurried pedestrians on the road, only the sound of the rain could be heard. Point two. There was a figure who looked weak and petite, like the rain itself could take her down, but she ran wildly through it, as if her life depended on it. It seemed that there was no end to the road. Point two. Her running finally stopped because she bumped into someone. Two. That someone was very tall. He was wearing a light blue shirt and a black suit. He held an ink-colored umbrella in his hand. Because of the girl's collision, his shirt was wet, showing his powerful but well-proportioned figure. Point two. You little girl, what happened? Did someone die at home? A driver walked out of the convenience store and happened to see this scene. Point two. No one died at home, but she was more miserable than a dead person. Liang Yunsheng pursed her lips and said in an almost inaudible voice, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." Two. You didn't mean it. If you did, it would be worse. Do you know who you hit? Do you know that you might not be able to pay for this shirt, even if you work for 10 years? The man stepped forward and poked her shoulder. Point two. Perhaps it was the weakness in her heart that made her more vulnerable, but Liang Yunsheng was only pushed lightly, and she still fell to the ground. At that moment, all the grievances and uneasiness surged into her heart. Her shoulders trembled and her eyes turned red. Point two. Fortunately, there was the cover of the rainstorm, so her crying would not look so shameful. Two. Just 2 hours ago, Liang Yunxing had found out that her surname was actually Liang. Her parents were not her biological parents. 16 years ago, she was carried out of the hospital by the wrong person. Two. The embarrassing thing was that her biological parents' careers were developing rapidly, and they had become famous families. Her adoptive parents were nothing more than ordinary workers, and her adoptive father had even become disabled due to work-related injuries. Point two. Liang Yunxing never expected that her adoptive parents would actually bring her to the Liang family to ask for their biological child back. Two. Yes, everyone knew that Su Yi, raised by the Liang family, was beautiful and generous. She had studied art since she was young and had attended an American university at 16. She had been raised into an arrogant peacock, beautiful and adored by all. Point two. And Liang Yunxing was just an ugly little sparrow. Two. She had seen the true eyes of both her adoptive and biological parents clearly. Point two. No one wanted her. Everyone wanted Su Yi, too. Her mind was a mess. All she wanted was to be alone. In a fit of anger that surged through her veins, she made to stand again, but was too weak under the rain. Point two. A slender hand reached out in front of her. Point two. Liang Yunsheng was stunned. She reached for the hand, allowing it to pull her to her feet. Her entire body was shrouded under the dark umbrella. Point two. The hand was warm and reassuring. However, she did not dare to look up at the man's face. His body emitted a feeling of nothing but oppression. It was the aura of a tyrant. Point two. Liang Yunsheng took a peek at his face. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. As handsome as he was cold, expressionless. She did not dare to continue staring at him. Point two. Get in the car and I'll send you home, the man said in a deep and magnetic voice as he handed the hot cocoa in the driver's hand to her. Point two. It was an order that could not be questioned. Point two. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. What could the 16-year-old Liang Yunxing do? Nothing. She could only return to the sad and desperate place she called home after being drenched in the rain. Point two. Her adoptive parents had long abandoned her, but Liang Yunsheng was still staying at the Liang family home. After tossing and turning all night, her parents had seemingly made a decision as to whether she should stay or go. Point two. Liang Yunsheng was sat in this home, now completely unfamiliar to her on a sofa she no longer recognized. Besides her were the people she once thought to be her parents. Point two. Yunsheng, your mother and I have thought over this matter. Your matter for a long time now, Father Liang said. Point two. Trouble plagued Mother Liang's face, completely sealing her mouth. Even Father Liang was forcing himself to speak, every word coming out heavy, painful. Point two. Half a year ago, we realized that we had taken the wrong child from the hospital that we took you and not Yi. We were afraid that you would be upset, so we agreed to hide it. The Liang family wanted money, so they sent you here. You probably don't know that our family, the Yin family, once had favor with an aristocratic family, currently in the limelight, too. Just cut to the end. Liang Yinsheng interrupted. She head pounded, and she couldn't physically listen to the entirety of Liang Yaoxing's story. Point 2. The Liang and Yin families had a marriage contract. A few days ago, the Yin family sent someone to discuss this matter. But since Yi studied, her ideologies are very modern. We thought this marriage contract would be a difficult thing for her to accept, and we did not know how to bring it up. 2. And now that you're back, I think this must be God's arrangement. This way, you can consider yourself married and not have a new family. Won't this make everyone be happy, too? Liang Yunxing's eyes widened. She just couldn't believe a single word that dripped from her father's mouth. This was a man who was supposed to protect her. They were supposed to be bound by blood. And he was willing to do this to her, too. What a happy ending. They could get rid of this shameful burden. They didn't have to worry anymore. The little sparrow would no longer affect their reputation. They just had to get rid of it. Get rid of her as soon as possible, too. Liang Yinsheng bit her lower lip. This was her first time back, and her parents, she once thought be biological, didn't even ask her how she was doing. Point 2. Fortunately, they didn't completely abandon her. Although she couldn't accept such a thing, this contract, they at least wanted her to have a good home. Point 2. I just celebrated my 16th birthday, though. I'm not even the legal age for marriage. It's too early for this. Liang Yunsheng said carefully. Point 2. A family like ours is different from ordinary people. But it's not like the old-fashioned marriages, where you get married without seeing who you're marrying. You must live with the Yin family and cultivate a relationship with Yin San. If things go smoothly, you will be engaged at 18 and get married at 22. Liang Yunsheng could not accept that her future would be decided so hastily and without any input from her. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in this life. I'm already independent and can completely live by myself. 2. Come nightfall, she managed to be both hot and cold. Her throat was sore, like a cold was forming, but heat still radiated from her forehead. Liang Yinsheng wanted to go downstairs to find a cup of hot water to drink, but she was surprised to hear the cook, who was on the night shift, cleaning the kitchen and chatting with a man in a low voice. Point 2. I don't know what Master is thinking. He wants to marry Miss Yinsheng just like that, too. If Miss Yinsheng doesn't marry him, does he want Miss Yi to marry him? You are a woman with long hair and short knowledge. You don't know. I heard that Yin Qianshun is an orphan of Tiansha. He is famous for being evil. He is cruel and vicious and has an unfathomable shrewdness. Even old Master Yin himself is afraid of him. He secretly regrets raising him, too. Then Miss Yinsheng will marry him, too. So, I guess that when the Yin family came to talk about this matter, the old master will begin to worry. He wouldn't dare let Miss Yi marry someone like that, but he would not dare dishonor third young Master Yin. This just happened to be the person who was sent to him, too. Liang Yunqing's head spun. Her heart dropped completely out of her chest into an abyss. Point 2. She was nothing more than someone who was going to suffer in place of Su Yi, too. She racked her brain, making excuses for her parents. They really hoped that she could live a safe and secure life. That's why they made the decision they did. 2. It was just wishful thinking, though. Point 2. The Yin family. She didn't want to go. She could live well on her own. 2. Liang Yinsheng wandered back through the corridors and fell back into bed. Point 2. Her mind was a complete wreck, but that didn't stop her from falling rapidly into a dream. Point 2. Despite falling in and out of dreams, she slept very restlessly. Dreams of the Su family and Liang family and the man from the cook's conversation. Point 2. In her final dream, she was drowning in a sea of fire. She was about to be fully pulled under as a chunk of ice floated along to serve as her rescue, she thought. The chunk of ice morphed into a great monster that formed a mouth with huge, dripping teeth that suddenly bit down on her. Point 2. Pain. Heat. She muttered to herself. Point 2. It was only a dream. She knew it was, but she couldn't shake a heat from her body. The sea of fire might not have been real, but it certainly felt like it was. Point 2. A man's face appeared in front of her as she struggled to focus her vision. He was closer than she first realized. She hugged to quilt as she stared at the man. Point 2. WH, who are you? 2. This was clearly her room. How could a stranger suddenly barge in? 2. Who are you? Liang Yunsheng was a frightened little hedgehog. She stood up with the thorns covering her body. No one would take a step closer, too. The man stood up. He stood tall and straight with a stern look on his face. He stood like a god, sacred and not to be offended. He did not even raise a brow when he saw Liang Yunsheng overreacting. Point 2. You have a fever, too. Liang Yunsheng recognized him with just 2 words. It was him, the man she bumped into in the rain the night before. Point 2. You too. Yin Qianchen. 2. Yin Qianchen called out his name, and his gaze fell on Liang Yunsheng's face. He hated her, kind of soft, fragile, and pretentious the most. Point 2. If she had a fever, it would be her own fault. Where did she learn to act in the rain like in an idol drama? Especially when she felt sick so easily. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng's shiny black eyes were beautiful. When she looked straight at people, she was like a deer that yearned for someone to caress her. But Yin Qianqen's first impression of her was far from that. Point 2. Yin Qianqen. He was the rumored evil young master of the Yin family. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng found it hard to believe that such a coincidence could actually happen. It was ridiculous to think it would ever happen, and yet it had. Point 2. The night before, the moon was high and the wind was dark, so she did not see his features clearly. But now she had seen this man clearly. His handsome face did not match his strong aura. Point 2. Perhaps this was why he dressed like someone more mature. His meticulous suit revealed his perfect figure. His jet black hair was combed back into an arrogant wolf's head. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng realized that she had been staring at him for longer than she would normally look at anyone. No matter how good-looking he was still a scary person. Point 2. Thank you for yesterday, and thank you for the hot cocoa, but Liang Yunsheng coughed a couple of times and continued in a nasal voice. But it's really impolite of you to enter my room without permission, Mr. Yin, too. The door wasn't locked. I told you to get up yesterday, but you hugged my hand. Yin Qianquan spoke without nonsense, clouding his words. Point 2. He was the ice monster from her dream. 2. Liang Yunsheng coughed a few more times. Yin Qianquan clearly had no intention of leaving. All she could do was chase him out the room. The door was not locked, but that doesn't mean you can just enter as you please. I'm awake, so you don't have to stand there anymore, Mr. Yin, too. So long as you can stand up on your own, I'll leave, too. What did he mean by that? Did he know something she didn't, too? Liang Yunsheng lifted the blanket and supported her body with her arms. But her body felt weak, just as she stretched her legs to get off the bed. She almost knelt before Yin Qianquan. Point 2. He had not been quick enough to catch her. She would have knelt. Point 2. I heard that you don't want to marry me. Yin Qianquan's frozen face showed the slightest glint of heat. Point 2. Something fell off to Liang Yunsheng. It didn't feel right to talk to him while he was holding her. Point 2. Yin Qianquan placed her back in the bed. Noticing her lack of a response, he continued to wrap her tightly in her blanket, trapping her in a cocoon. In her new position, it was easy for him to pick her up. Point 2. What are you doing? Liang Yunsheng exploded. She was weak enough as it was, but now trapped, she was hopeless. Point 2. I've thought about it. Although the road is bumpy, I'll still take you back to recuperate. Yin Qianquan spoke to her like she was nothing more than a pet. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng understood what he meant perfectly. Point 2. I don't want to go with you, too. Liang Yunsheng struggled, but she could not escape. Point 2. If she was taken away by him, wouldn't that mean that she had agreed to marry him? 2. You must not know me. If I want someone to sit down, but that person insists on standing, I will break their legs and make him sit down. 2. Feeling Liang Yunsheng struggle, the trace of heat on Yin Qianquan's face was extinguished and the cold reigned again. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng shuddered. Yin Qianquan's words were not to be taken lightly, but at the same time, she couldn't help but think he had worse examples in his arsenal. Point 2. He was the kind of tyrant that left no room for resistance. Point 2. He was shameless and had reached a point where there was no changing that. Point 2. It seems that you're not satisfied with me yet. Then I have no choice but to marry you and make you satisfied with me. I have no choice but to marry you, too. Liang Yinsheng felt like she was about to suffocate. She wanted to ask Mr. Yin, what kind of grudge do you have against me? 2. To Yin Qianshun, this was like playing with a little kitten or a little white rabbit. It was so casual that he could squeeze you to death with just the strength of his fingers. 2. To Liang Yinsheng, this could ruin the rest of her life. 2. I don't accept it. You can't force me. Liang Yinsheng struggled. 2. Liang Yinsheng was already hot-tempered. When she got angry, she thrashed and screamed with her hoarse voice. But her small face was as sullen as a rotting apple. 2. Be obedient. Yin Qianshun lowered his voice and slapped the area below her waist across the blanket with a warning tone. 2. Pervert! Pervert! Liang Yinsheng reprimanded him as best she could. 2. Without any deterrent force, though, all she could do was turn her body to show that she hated Yin Qianshun's actions. Yin Qianshun had already ignored her objection and continued to carry her downstairs. 2. The group of people downstairs who waited for Yin Qianshun to wake up Liang Yinsheng couldn't help but see the strange scene. 2. What happened? Liang Yaoxing's eyes were wide. The sight of Liang Yinsheng wrapped up and in a large man's arms forced him to his feet. 2. Yinsheng got caught in the rain last night and has a fever, Yin Qianshun answered. There was no room in his voice for questioning. 2. Liang Yinsheng frowned. This was the first time he referred to her by name. 2. Sheng Sheng has a fever. Liang Yaosheng turned to scold her. Why didn't you tell Mom and Dad? How can you meet people when you're sick? Quick, young Master Yin, put her down. After she recovers, I'll bring her to see you personally. You don't want to become ill yourself, too. If you didn't tell them, they wouldn't have found out that she was sick at all. 2. These were her parents. Liang Yunxing's heart trembled in her chest. She lowered her eyes and finally gave in, stopping her struggling. 2. They didn't even care about her as much as they did Yin Qianshun. He knew it was because of the rain, but they thought nothing. 2. There's no need. I'll take Yinsheng to see the doctor now. Yin Qianshun assured them. 2. The Liang family's expressions changed. Why did Yin Qianshun sound like he already treated Liang Yinsheng as his property? 2. No one dared ask or question Yin Qianshun, however. 2. Let me go with you. If you walk out of here, then you might get sick yourself, too. Liang Yinsheng's head was spinning. She couldn't even think. All she could do was let herself be taken by Yin Qianshun. 2. Yinsheng, too. Liang Yinsheng's mother, Chun Xinyuo, cried. She had not spoken to her daughter properly in days. 2. She could not face her daughter, nor could she promise anything. Even though Liang Yinsheng was her biological child, she had already invested all her efforts in her adopted daughter. If she could only choose one of the two, she would let Liang Yinsheng suffer. 2. She could not exchange her perfect daughter for one who had neither received any higher education nor come into contact with the upper class. 2. All she could do was watch as her biological daughter was pushed into the arms of a demon. 2. Liang Yinsheng remained silent, ignoring her. 2. Yin Qianshun did not waste any more time. Seeing that Liang Yinsheng's lack of protest, he turned and walked out the door of the Liang family home. He carried Liang Yinsheng to his car, placing her in the back, and sitting himself in the front. 2. Why didn't you ask me to? Why didn't you ask her why she ran in the rain that day? Yin Qianshun thought to himself. 2. Why didn't you ask her why this daughter of the Liang family looked so down? 2. I don't need to ask anyone what I want to know. Yin Qianshun answered. 2. It seemed that he had known his place in the Liang family for a long time. Yin Qianshun said, you turned 16 this year. There are still 4 years left until you turn 20 and get married. I'll make you a high-quality woman. 2. His words tore through her mind. She could barely make sense of what this monster had just told her. 2. High-quality woman. What did that mean, too? You turned 16 this year. There are still 4 years left until you turn 20 and get married. I'll make you a high-quality woman. 2. Liang Yinsheng repeated the sentence over and over in her head, but no matter how many times she did, she still couldn't understand the meaning behind it. 2. Of course, your own hard work is also very important, too. Yin Qianshun didn't even turn around to look at her as he spoke. He just kept talking to himself. 2. If I work hard, what will the result be? Liang Yinsheng asked in a low voice. 2. If you work hard, you'll be qualified to be my wife and marry me. 2. Liang Yunsheng was powerless. Point 2. If that really was the case, then she would, without a doubt, try her best to mess up everything that she possibly could so that she would have no choice in not marrying him. Simple, too. Don't you want to do your best and show everyone looking down on you that you are a shining diamond? Then you can raise your head and look down on them. Instead, too, Yin Xianshan spoke in a deep, thunderous voice. If Liang Yunsheng didn't know any better, she would have thought he was talking about himself. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng couldn't tell whether it was his words or the resonance of his voice that made her jolt. Point 2. Let everyone see that she was not the incompetent Liang Yunsheng they knew her as. Point 2. Let them regret abandoning her. Point 2. Let them know she had become the most outstanding woman. Point 2. Raise her head and look down on everyone. Point 2. Despite everything Yin Xinshan had done, his words still managed to worm their way into Liang Yunxing's head like they were positive. Like what he was saying all sounded like a good idea to her. Point 2. The car stopped and the door opened from the outside. Point 2. A middle-aged man in a simple suit with a smile on his face bent down and extended his hand out to Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Sir is back. Dr. Ling is already waiting, the middle-aged man said. Point 2. The most important thing now is to cure your feverish brain, Yin Xinshan said to Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Yin Xinshan took the lead, stepping out of the car. He brusquely turned around and picked up Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Hao Cheng, the butler and middle-aged man, took a step forward as if to assist Yin Xinshan with Liang Yunsheng, only to realize Qinshan's actions and making way for him to get by. Point 2. There were numerous helpers waiting to assist. However, none of them dared whisper a single word about or to their master. Point 2. This was the first time they had seen their master bring a girl home, let alone take care of her personally. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng was a helpless princess being carried into the beast's castle. There was nothing she could do but bury her face deeper into the blanket. Point 2. I see you've brought young Madame Yin, Ling Ruofei said. Dressed in a doctor's white robe, they walked over quickly. Point 2. Ling Ruofei pulled the blanket away and revealed Liang Yunxing's red face to the room. Yin Qinshan, you don't pity her at all, do you? This girl is still so young. You truly are merciless, too. There were few people who dared to joke with Yin Qinshan. Ling Ruofei was one of them. Point 2. Being so close to Ling Ruofei's for so long, Yin Qinshan did not make a fuss about the teasing. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng glanced at Ling Ruofei from the corner of her eyes, thinking how refined, how attractive he was, but that there had to have been something wrong with him, given the association to Yin Qinshan. Point 2. Despite Ling Ruofei's constant smile, his medical skills were unparalleled. A small cold was nothing to him. Point 2. Upon being given a 4-drip, Liang Yunsheng was quick to fall asleep. Point 2. Perhaps it was due to the medicine, but she was quick to fall into a deep sleep. Nary a dream interrupting her. Point 2. All air was taken from her lungs, and she could no longer breathe. 2. No matter how good her sleep was, the feeling of dying would consume everything. Point 2. Liang Yunxing's eyes cracked open. She gulped down large mouthfuls of air. Jumping up, out of bed, her mouth met something directly in front of her. Something warm. Point 2. Her eyes focused to the sight of Mr. Yin stood before her, with an unpleasant expression washed over his face. Point 2. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Liang Yunsheng stood. Point 2. Only then did Liang Yunsheng realize what had touched her mouth. Point 2. Oh my God! Her hand shot up and covered her mouth. I had never kissed anyone other than my own family. And it was you, a man, too? Yin Xinshan remained static. Point 2. He ran his fingers across his cheekbones, which had a small imprint on them. It was hard to tell whether he was angry or not. Liang Yunsheng looked at him carefully. Mr. Yin exploded, pressing Liang Yunsheng's body back onto the bed with one hand, and holding her wrists with the other, preventing her from moving. Point 2. Hey, what are you doing? She protested. Point 2. Yin Qinshan's face approached her own. Liang Qinshan screamed and forced her eyes shut. This was definitely a standard posture with bad intentions. Although Liang Yunsheng was young, she had never eaten pork before or seen pigs run. Point 2. In Xianshun barely needed any of his strength to render her immobile. Point two. No way, too. It was just that she accidentally broke In Xianshun's face. It would not lead to any fatal disaster, right, too? Liang Yinxing noticed In Xianshun's face approaching her. Point two. Her heart was beating even more intensely in her chest. Point two. In Xianshun's warm breath landed on Liang Yinxing's face. She closed her eyes and felt herself begin to tremble. Point two. Her face, which still had a little bit of baby fat, was bitten hard. That hurts, too. Liang Yinsheng reopened her eyes and realized that In Qianqian had actually bitten her face. Point two. Why did you bite me? Liang Yinsheng asked, rubbing her face. Point two. In Qianqian let go of her gently and did not speak. Liang Yinsheng glanced at the small wound on her face and felt herself go red. Point two. So childish. Tit for a tat? Revenge for the smallest grievance? Don't imitate the Yazi, because Yazi is very ugly. Liang Yinsheng muttered in a low voice. Point two. Try this on. In Qianqian put on a smug face and threw the clothes in his hands in Liang Yinsheng's direction. Point two. Liang Yinsheng picked up the clothes and took a look. It turned out to be a single item. It was a light pink evening gown with a gray bird pinned at the corner of the skirt. Point two. Why did you come in without knocking again? I'm not terminally ill, and I can walk, too. Liang Yinsheng began to grind her teeth. Point two. I own this house. By proxy, I own this room, too. What kind of answer was that? Two. However, Liang Yinsheng had forgotten that the person before her was the infamous evil young master, In Qianqian. Point two. Who would dare to try reasoning with him? He would merely tell you that you were the unreasonable one. Point two. Liang Yinsheng sighed to herself. What's with the dress? Two. There's an unimportant birthday party in a week's time. Prepare yourself, too. And I'm going, too. If you want to be worthy of me, you have to start learning. Being mid-recovery is not a reason for you to slack off, too. I'm not worthy of you, all right, she thought to herself. Point two. She screamed in her heart. She knew that she could not resist the man before her forever. Point two. I still have some things to do. In Qianshun looked down at his watch and back up to Liang Yinsheng. My personal assistant, and Zimming, will be here in an hour to teach you what to do, too. Do I really have to listen to him, too? Liang Yinsheng was lost. She hugged the clothes and sat by the bed, without saying a word. Point two. Are you still hesitating? In Qianshun asked. Point two. He made to close the door, but turned around at the last moment. What would happen if you left now? Would you go back to being ordinary? Would you disappear from here and be content with being ordinary, with being nobody? It's not like anybody chose you in the first place. Two. Her parents' words were nails that pierced her heart. And thanks to In Qianqian's reminder, the nails were removed and pierced right through her heart again. Point two. What could she do, too? Liang Yunxing's fingers clenched onto the clothes in her arms. She loosened her lower lip and said, I don't want, but stopped herself. Point two. She could no longer go back. She could no longer return to the old Liang Yinsheng who lived a normal life. Point two. She figured she might as well change completely then. The happiness and stability of the past were gone. Why not just destroy her silly old self and become new, better version of herself, too? Liang Yinxing knew that even if she chose to try and leave, In Qianqian wouldn't let her go easily. It wouldn't be without a fight. Point two. It was better to take things as they came. Even if she wanted to escape, she had to wait for a better opportunity. Point two. A wise decision, In Qianqian said in a low voice. Point two. Liang Yinsheng didn't manage to spot In Qianqian leaving. The moment he finished his sentence, he was gone. It was easy to change one's past and become new person. Point two. It was easy enough to say that. However, putting it into practice was a different demon entirely. Point two. Liang Yinsheng originally thought that Zimming would be as gentle as Ling Ruofei and Hao Cheng were. Point two. She was wrong. Point two. Your aptitude is abysmal. It's not impossible for a sparrow to fly to the top, but it requires 1,000 years of cultivation. Can you do it, too? Your education level is high school dropout. And Zimming squinted. You might as well be illiterate, too. A person without taste wouldn't be able to tell. But this dress was custom-made for you by President Een yesterday afternoon. When Sophia came back from Paris, she designed it and produced the finished product in one night. 2. Oh, do you even know how much a piece of clothing made by Sophia is worth? Actually, I don't think you deserve to know. Also, I guess that even the world's top fashion designer, Sophia, can't save you. Because this dress, when worn by you, looks like a street-level item that costs 50 yuan for 3 pieces. 2. What do you actually gain from insulting me like this? Liang Yinsheng asked. Point 2. She clenched her fists and looked straight at Enziming. No, I'm not as high-end and elegant as you. But you're just an errand boy for Yin Qinshen, aren't you? 2. She wasn't usually this aggressive, but she certainly wasn't a steam bun that could be bullied. 2. Enziming was stunned for a moment and suddenly smiled. You have a very unique personality, little girl. 2. I believe that in a week, Miss Liang, you will definitely be able to familiarize yourself with the contents of these books and become an outstanding young lady from an influential family. 2. Enziming procured a stack of books and placed them in front of Liang Yinsheng. He turned around and left the room with a triumphant smile on his face. Point 2. What kind of joke is this? Liang Yinsheng thought. Enziming was a CEO's assistant, yet he was reduced to babysitting. Point 2. Table manners, social etiquette, upper-class society, how to become a lady. Were these things? Liang Yinsheng said to herself as she picked up one of the books. Point 2. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the days that followed, Yin Qinshen was always busy with something. Liang Yinsheng didn't see him for days. Point 2. Hao Cheng arranged Liang Yinsheng's meals and living arrangements so she could spend all day with her new books. Point 2. She didn't want to be looked down upon by Enziming. Point 2. Even after reading the whole book, Liang Yinsheng was still confused. Social interaction was not something that could be mastered easily. Point 2. It was not until the unimportant birthday party that Liang Yinsheng saw Yin Qinshen again. However, Enziming still appeared before her before Yin Qinshen. Point 2. I would also advise that you not be too arrogant because of my favor, Miss Liang. You probably don't know why I brought you into the venue. It was because President Yin has instructed us not to reveal your identity for the time being. 2. Enziming was clearly overjoyed to see that Yin Qinshen still did not acknowledge Liang Yinsheng. Point 2. When have I shown arrogance? Liang Yinsheng thought. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng would be better off if Yin Qinshen erased her from his life or granted her the title of fiancée. 2. One positive of her whole situation was that Enziming had left her alone, without instruction, in the huge villa the party was being held at. Point 2. He also hadn't told her where Yin Qinshen was. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng carefully moved to a sofa in the corner of the room and sat down. Point 2. Beside her was a boy, 14 or 15, dressed in a white suit. He had handsome features. He kept his head down as he fiddled with a Rubik's Cube. However, Point 2. Thinking it would be easier to talk to a child than Liang Yinsheng decided to strike up a conversation with him. Hello, she said. Point 2. The boy kept his head down and ignored her. Point 2. Do you know where Yin Qinshen and Mr. Yin are? 2. Liang Yinsheng didn't have much hope, but she received a response from the boy. Point 2. Yin Qinshen. Oh, you mean Mr. Iceberg facial paralysis? I do too. The boy nodded and grabbed Liang Yinsheng's wrist. He walked her straight to the balcony on the second floor of the villa. Point 2. Isn't that him? With the Annie with a D cup? He's probably in a relationship, too. Liang Yinsheng looked in the direction the boy pointed. It was indeed Yin Qinshen, and beside him stood a woman, dressed dazzlingly and luxuriously. Point 2. The romantic balcony of the villa, the moon, the breeze, the fine wine, and the beautiful woman. It was difficult for people to not indulge in any nonsense, too. Liang Yinsheng raised her eyebrows. Point 2. Could it be they were old lovers, too? No, too. It's completely possible that she's a current lover. Liang Yinsheng thought. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng put a hand to her face and sighed as she thought of the explosive question. Point 2. What's wrong, too? The boy turned and looked at Liang Yinsheng beside him. His expression changed like something clicked in his brain. Point 2. Don't tell me you like that man. 2. The boy's expression softened. He then sized up Liang Yinsheng. Point 2. Yin Qinshen is indeed difficult to reach. I suppose it's only natural or Cinderella to dream. You're not bad-looking, actually, although you can't compare to the celebrities or rich daughters in there. At least you're natural. You know, it's okay if your breasts are a little smaller. You can still work hard, too. You're overthinking it, Liang Yinsheng said, point two. She glared at the boy and crossed her arms over her chest, point two. To think that this shabby child is so well-dressed and looked like a rich young master, Liang Yinsheng thought. Why did he speak so, too? You were the one who asked me about Yin Qianqian. You should know that offending him is no joke. I took a big risk in bringing you to see him. You owe me, too. The kid must have read too many wuxia novels. However, Liang Yinsheng also knew that he was right. Had it not been for him, she wouldn't have found Yin Qianqian so quickly, point two. Fine. I owe you a favor, okay? Two. Liang Yinsheng wasn't in the mood to talk nonsense with the boy. The key was how she was going to get to Yin Qianqian, too. Although she didn't want anything to do with Yin Qianqian, he was the only one at the party who knew her, point two. To protect herself and leave smoothly, it was better for her to stick with Yin Qianqian, point two. Was she going to go up to him directly, too? Liang Yinsheng suddenly remembered what Enziming told her, point two. Yin Qianqian did not want to reveal his identity, which meant it was best for her to not go there so rashly, point two. Although Enziming did not like her, he would not go so far as to fake an imperial edict, too. How about this? Let's go closer and listen to what they are saying. The boy poked Liang Yinsheng with his elbow, point two. The two of them crept closer to Yin Qianqian and the woman on the balcony, point two. Things are still going according to the original plan. No mistakes are allowed. What if, too? Liang Yinsheng's ears pricked up. She only managed to heard half of Yin Qianqian's words, however, point two. Come out, too. Yin Qianqian raised his voice, point two. Are they talking about us? Liang Yinsheng asked the boy, point two. High face was solemn as he nodded, point two. You see you at. Yin Qianqian called out another name, point two. Here, the boy said, jumping up and touching his head. Brother Chun, what a coincidence. You guys are here too. Admire the moon, admire the flowers, admire the stars, too. Yin Qianqian's expression did not change. He merely raised his chin at the other person squatting, point two. You see you at kicked, Liang Yinsheng, point two. Liang Yinsheng slowly stood up, raised her head, and looked at Yin Qianqian. She refused to make eye contact. Why would she? Especially when she had been caught eavesdropping, point two. Yu Siyue's nerves suddenly went crazy. He reached out to hold Liang Yinsheng's arm, point two. Liang Yinsheng watched as Yin Qianqian's eyes narrowed, point two. This is Yin Qianqian asked, point two. My female companion. She's quite cute, isn't she? Yu Siyue said as he leaned closer to Liang Yinsheng, point two. Oh, your female companion is very cute, indeed. 2. Yin Qianqian's indifferent tone was tinged with playfulness. Liang Yinsheng did not know why, but she could hear a hint of danger in it. Yes, Yu Siyue said, as if he wanted to prove her identity. He even reached out and hugged Liang Yinsheng's shoulders, bringing the two of them closer, point two. Although the boy was still thin, he was already very tall. With long arms and legs, he looked like a man who wasn't used to his own body yet, point two. Yin Qianqian stood there, looking taller than normal. He was wearing a green-gray suit. His left shoulder to his chest and abdomen were inlaid with bits of broken diamonds. The pants covered his ankles perfectly, but were just short enough so that they didn't appear too long. His black leather shoes were simple but spotless, point two. Liang Yinsheng thought back to what Enziming had said to her about clothes, point two. Yin Qianqian's clothes had to have been designed by Sophia, 2.2. No matter what the clothes were, different people wearing different clothes revealed different styles, point two. Liang Yinsheng subconsciously tugged at the hem of her skirt, making the little gray bird move, point two. If the dress was specially designed, why would Yin Qianqian have such an interest in allowing such an ugly thing to be stuck to it? 2. Yin Qianqian said no more, simply giving the woman beside him a look. The woman lowered her head and retreated submissively. He didn't even raise his head to look at Liang Yinsheng and Yu Siyue, point two. It certainly didn't seem like the kind of relationship they imagined. 2. The woman was more like a servant than a lover, point two. Liang Yunsheng and Yu Siyue looked at each other. Obviously, the two of them had the same idea. Point two. Liang Yunsheng, it seems that Enziming has taught you a lot. In Qianshun took a few slow steps to Liang Yunsheng's side. Point two. She couldn't but shrink back, feeling the cold aura emanating from In Qianshun. Point two. It seemed like it wasn't the time to care about others, but rather the time to protect oneself, too. In Qianshun hooked a lock of Liang Yunxing's soft hair with his index finger and touched it. You found a male partner so quickly, too. Yu Siyue watched In Qianshun's ambiguous actions and knew they weren't good. Point two. In Qianshun knew her by name. Could it be? This girl was not In Qianshun's secret lover, but rather the two of them have this special relationship. Yu Siyue thought to himself. Point two. Suddenly, the music in the villa changed, and the center of the venue changed into a dance floor. Point two. The waltz music was melodious, and couples began to dance hand in hand. The atmosphere changed, became harmonious in an instant. Point two. Young Master Yu, would you mind lending me your female partner for a dance? Two. The corners of In Qianshun's lips curled up slightly. Yu Siyue trembled. In Qianshun had actually smiled at him. At him, too. Yu Siyue would have believed that Mars was going to crash into Earth if In Qianshun told him. Point two. Although Yu Siyue was young, he was born in a wealthy family. If he couldn't tell that In Qianshun was in a bad mood, then he had better wash up and go to bed early. Point two. Of course, too. Yu Siyue reached out and pushed Liang Yunsheng towards In Qianshun. Point two. How could he be so disloyal? Liang Yunsheng thought. Point two. Liang Yunsheng wanted to cry. However, before she could even think about it, her hand was taken by In Qianshun, and her slender waist was taken in his strong arms, forcing her closer to him. Point two. Miss Liang, do you know how to dance? Take it as my first lesson to you. Two. In Qianshun lowered his head, and his lips touched her earlobe. Point two. His magnetic voice came closer, worming its way into her head and sounding more attractive than ever before. Point two. She could not help but blush. Point two. Fortunately, the night was dark, and Liang Yunxing's red apple-like face didn't attract much attention from In Qianshun. Point two. In Qianshun pulled Liang Yunsheng. He didn't sneak onto the dance floor. Instead, he took the empty space on the balcony. Point two. Liang Yunsheng turned her head and tried stealing a glance at Yu Siyue, only to find him gone. Point two. Missing someone? In Qianshun asked in a tone that told Liang Yunsheng he already knew the answer. Point two. No one. I'm learning how to dance seriously, too. Liang Yunsheng pursed her lips and wanted to laugh. She didn't quite believe that In Qianshun, who always kept a straight face and loved to do as he pleased, would be a good dancer. Point two. Waltz. She tried to imagine In Qianshun dancing arrogantly. In the end, she failed. Point two. In Qianshun looked down at Liang Yunxing's red face and smiled gently, thinking that maybe she wasn't so bad. Point two. However, In Qianshun always overturned Liang Yunxing's imagination. Point two. The waltz steps were not as she remembered. Point two. In Qianshun led her forward and backward. Liang Yunxing's body stiffened. She didn't think her IQ was bad, but after a round of waltzing, she almost suspected that she had a problem with her limbs. Point two. I stepped on your feet again. Liang Yunsheng squatted down to wipe away the eyesore of a shoe print she had left, but In Qianshun pulled her arm. Point two. Continue. Two. Continue. Two. After stepping on In Qianshun's feet repeatedly, Liang Yunxing's back was almost covered in a cold sweat. Where her body once was warm, it was no longer. Point two. You didn't learn this lesson well. In Qianshun told her. Point two. As the song came to an end, In Qianshun let go. There's no need to feel too much pressure. This time, I only asked you to come and play. There's a buffet on the first floor. If you're hungry, go ahead, and Zimming will come back to pick you up once the banquet is over. 2. Liang Yunxing wished In Qianshun had said nothing. Wei told her of the buffet. However, her stomach began to growl. Point 2. In Qianshun turned around and returned to the villa. He didn't turn back to look at her, leaving her to feel as though the wonderful scene had all been a dream. Point 2. Liang Yunxing watched him, enraptured by him, as he walked. Point 2. She pursed her lips and felt a pang of concern hit her chest. In Xinshen didn't want anyone to know there was a connection between the two of them. Point two. When Liang Yinsheng made her way to the dining room on the first floor, she found Yu Siyue, engrossed by a fruit salad. Point two. You actually made it back alive, too. Yu Siyue, mid-bite, pulled Liang Yinsheng back in surprise and gave her a thumbs up. This is the first time I've seen someone who can deal with that terrifying iceberg. You might actually have a chance in chasing him, too. I'm not chasing him. Liang Yinsheng emphasized. Point two. All right, I'll still help you, either way. Should we get to know each other again? I'm Yu Siyu too. Liang Yinsheng too. Liang Yinsheng smiled as she shook Yu Siyue's hand. Point two. Does this count as the first friend I've ever had in my life? Liang Yinsheng thought. Point two. If this is the way my new life is heading, then maybe it isn't so bad, too. Are you hungry? Yu Siyu asked. Eat this cake. It's so soft. I've already tried it, too. Despite everyone in the villa fighting with their wits and courage, there remained two hamsters with bulging cheeks, sat, eating delicious food and watching a good show. Point two. Liang Yinsheng. A man's voice called. Point two. Liang Yinsheng stopped eating. The voice sounded familiar. Could it be, too? No. He would never be here, too. Liang Yinsheng? It really is you, too. The voice sounded happy and quickly approached her. Point two. Liang Yinsheng turned her head mechanically to the sight of a thin man wearing a suit and gold-rimmed glasses. Point two. Yinsheng, don't you remember me? It's Sheng Nuo. Why have you become invisible now? The man smiled and came closer. Point two. Senior, Sheng Nuo. Liang Yinsheng's face turned pale, the sides of her mouth dropping. Point two. Your clothes seem to be very high-end. How did you sneak in? Sheng Nuo looked as though he had noticed a bunch of weeds, like himself, among the elegant flowers. He stuck to the train of thought that maybe he wasn't alone to try and find some comfort. Point two. Who allowed you to touch her? Yu Siyue pried Sheng Nuo's hand from Liang Yinsheng. Please show some respect to girls. Two. Sheng Nuo was stunned. He took a step back. He flattened his expression and handed a business card over to Yu Siyue. Hello, young master Yu. I don't know if you still remember me. I'm the product manager of the Haohui subsidiary company under your family, Sheng Nuo. 2. Yu Siyue glanced at the business card before handing it back. Point 2. Yinsheng is not someone you can call. She's my female companion. Yu Siyue's face darkened, his arrogance evident, like he was above everyone else. It was like a different Yu Siyue to the one in front of Liang Yinsheng and Yin Qianchen. Point 2. After pulling Liang Yinsheng away, Yu Siyue's face changed back to how it was before. Point 2. Do the two of you have some kind of grudge against each other or something? 2. Surprised by Yu Siyue's sensitivity, Liang Yinsheng's lips twitched. Why do you say that? She asked. Point 2. Because you seem to hate him. Yu Siyue raised his eyebrows and looked at Liang Yinsheng, waiting for an answer he seemingly already knew. Point 2. He used to bully me in school, too. Liang Yinsheng considered her words before continuing. Point 2. Oh my God, it's disgusting. A grown man bullying a little girl. How shameless, too. Yu Siyue's big, bright eyes began darting around. He was looking for something for a plan he had. Point 2. There's still some time before the end of the birthday party. I say, let's go mess with him and help you vent some of your anger, too. That's not very good, though. Although Liang Yinsheng said that, she was still tempted to do something. Point 2. Thinking of what Sheng Nuo had done to her, Liang Yinsheng still wasn't over it. If I really could teach him a lesson, surely it would help make me happy, she thought to herself. Point 2. The corners of Yu Siyue's mouth raised, and he curled his hand, gesturing for Liang Yinsheng to lean closer to him. Sheng Nuo hasn't gone too far, and his eyes are still lingering on you. So, I'm sure that as soon as we separate, he will come looking for you. There aren't many people in the villa's garden's swimming pool. When you go there later, he will follow you, and I will be like a mantis stalking a cicada. 2. And then, 2. Yu Siyue took out a red firecracker from his pocket. First, stuff this into his clothes, then push him into the water, so long as the situation allows it, 2. Come on, you're a young master. Why would you have such a strange thing in your pocket, 2? Before Liang Yinsheng could complain any further or be given an answer, Yu Siyue pushed her out of her seat and onto her feet. Point 2. Yu Siue was in high spirits and clearly had done this kind of prank before. Point 2. After Liang Yinsheng and Yu Siue parted ways, they followed the agreed plan and strolled into the garden alone separately. Since the house was bustling with activity, it was empty outside. Point 2. Like Yu Siue said, Sheng Nuo followed Liang Yinsheng once she was alone. Point 2. Yinsheng is doing really well. Look at this little face. It's even more delicate than before, Sheng Nuo said to himself. Point 2. Sheng Nuo had a perverted smile on his face. He approached Liang Yinsheng and tried to touch her face, but she frowned and batted his hand away. Point 2. Stop pretending. Sheng Nuo grabbed Liang Yinsheng's wrist. I say, it's easier for a woman to get to the top than a man. 2. Let go of me, too. Despite Sheng Nuo being skinny, he was still a man. Liang Yinsheng could not struggle free. A wave of nausea washed over her. Every inch of her skin crawled under his touch. Point 2. An anxiety wormed its way into her. She wondered why Yu Siue had not come over yet. You're not going to try to stand me up at a time like this, are you? Sheng Nuo sneered. Point 2. The power that restrained Liang Yinsheng suddenly disappeared. Point 2. Bang! The sound of collision filled her ears, and the smell of blood filled her nostrils. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng covered her mouth and stumbled back, gasping. Point 2. Why Yin Xinshin? 2. Liang Yinsheng's heart was beating violently, to the point where it was almost jumping out of her throat. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng had only thought that Yin Xinshin's violence had only lived in the words of others. Point 2. She had never seen the real, evil young master for herself. Point 2. But she had finally seen his ruthlessness. It was real, too. Yin Xinshin's left hand was stuck in his pocket. His right pressed Sheng Nuo's face against the wall beside him. Point 2. Although his face was blank, it was obvious that he was gritting his teeth. Point 2. Yin Xinshin's chin was raised and his hair slightly out of place. It was a complete reversal of his indifference. He suddenly carried a bit of a ruffian air about him. Point 2. Sheng Nuo's face was covered in blood, and it was almost impossible to see the features. Point 2. Yin Xinshin's speed was almost as fast as a cheetah's. Liang Yinsheng didn't even see what he had done. Point 2. But Liang Yinsheng could piece together that Yin Xinshin had just used his hand to smash Sheng Nuo's head against the wall. Yin Xinshin's strength was almost unimaginable. Point 2. Sheng Nuo looked as though he had just been hit by a car. Point 2. Oh my God! Liang Yinsheng thought. Point 2. This was completely different from the heroes on TV who saved the damsels. Point 2. This was crude, brutal. Point 2. But still satisfying. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng remembered that Yu Siue was still beside her. Her gaze moved slowly over to him. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng's eyes bored into him. This is different from what we agreed on, she said in a low voice. Point 2. At times like this, you should just let Yin Xinshin do his thing. This is the scariest punishment for anyone. The corners of Yu Siue's mouth curled into a smug smile. Point 2. Only then did Liang Yinsheng realize that it was Yu Siue, the little brat, who had planned everything, right from the beginning. Point 2. Yin Xinshin retracted his arm. Sheng Nuo had no strength in his body and slid down the wall. Point 2. Yin Xinshin took out a pure white handkerchief from his pocket, wiped it clean, and threw it at Sheng Nuo. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng watched as Yin Xinshin walked towards her and subconsciously straightened her body, like a soldier waiting for the emperor to inspect her. Point 2. I too. However, Yin Xinshin just brushed past her. He said nothing, did not pay heed to her words. He didn't even look at her. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng remained rooted to the ground and turned around to look at Yin Xinshin's as he walked away. Point 2. Hurry up. Chase him. Yu Siue ran over to her and pushed her. Point 2. Chase? Oh, it clicked in her mind. Point 2. Yin Xinshin's steps were big. Liang Yinsheng had to run to catch up. Point 2. Yin Xinshin, wait for me, she said between heavy breath. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng's voice forced Yin Xinshin to stop at his tracks. He might have stopped, but he didn't turn to face her. Point 2. I too. Liang Yinsheng tried smiling at him. I wanted to say thank you. To Yin Xinshin's expression remained unchanged. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng could usually recognize Yin Qinshan's expression when he was angry. This expression, however, was different. Point 2. What did that man do to you? 2. Yin Qinshan stepped forward and pinched Liang Yinsheng's face. Ugh. 2. Liang Yinsheng was forced to raise her head and see that the redness in Yin Qinshan's eyes had not faded. Point 2. Although I don't like you, I hope you can understand that I, Yin Qinshan, hate it when people touch my things. Although I don't like you, I hope you can understand that I, Yin Qinshan, hate it when people touch my things, too. The things in his sentence, too. Is he referring to me? Liang Yinsheng thought to herself. Point 2. When did I become Yin Qinshan's property? 2. Liang Yinsheng hesitated. Point 2. Tell me, what did that man do to you? 2. The pain from Liang Yinsheng's jaw snapped her back to reality. Point 2. It was a personal grudge, too. Liang Yinsheng didn't really want to talk to Yin Qinshan, not about her past with Xingnua. Point 2. Yin Qinshan's expression darkened. The air around Liang Yinsheng turned cold. Point 2. A personal grudge, he repeated. Point 2. Yin Qinshan paused for a moment before he continued. Everyone is inside, yet you're meeting him privately in this dark place, too. His tone was calm, but oozed dissatisfaction. Point 2. She almost told him of Yu's plan. Point 2. Although young master, you had really set her up, it didn't seem like a good idea to expose him. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng, I really underestimated your ability. You've only been here for a few hours, and you've already hooked up with young master Yu. It's fine if you don't tell me anything, but I didn't know you liked that kind trash, too. What? Hook up? How can you use such words to talk about me? Liang Yinsheng's blood began to heat up as she waved Yin Qinshan's hand away. Point 2. Just say it. I want you to explain the whole thing to me, and then you must apologize, too. I won't explain, and you won't listen, too. Liang Yinsheng took a deep breath and balled her fist. Point 2. Opening up an old wound would hurt her, but it was better than adding a new one. Point 2. Xingnua and Liang Yinsheng went to the same middle school. Liang Yinsheng was an excellent student. Although she was not eye-catching, she looked cute. Her big round eyes curved when she smiled. She was very happy, and people liked her upon first sight. Point 2. Xingnua was an old fox in the school. He was forced to stay behind in his second year of high school due to his poor grades. Point 2. Xingnua and Liang Yinsheng happened to be in the same class, and he immediately set his eyes on Liang Yinsheng as an easy target. Point 2. Xingnua was small, so he ended up sat behind Liang Yinsheng. Xingnua finally found an opportunity to harm Liang Yinsheng. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and escaped from his grasp. Point 2. I told the teacher about Shangna. I was even going to call the police. His parents bought my parents' silence. My father, Uncle Sue, also just happened to have an accident at the factory. His leg was injured, and he needed someone to take care of him. They thought that this was a scandal that I caused in school, so I had to drop out. 2. Liang Yinsheng's eyes welled up. She took another deep breath and continued. So, it was Yu's idea. He wanted me to lure him over, then make him suffer. I didn't know that Yu would call you over. 2. Liang Yinsheng raised her head and stared at Yin Qinshan with a fearless expression. Did you just accuse me of seducing the disgusting guy? Apologize to me now. How long has it been since the word apologize appeared in my world? Yin Qinshan thought. Point 2. Yin Qinshan could barely remember. Point 2. He was about 3 or 4, and his mother was still by his side. What did I do wrong to be asked to apologize? 2. He had never done anything wrong. He had to be right, even if it was his fault. Point 2. However, Liang Yinsheng, asking him to apologize with a red face, he felt a pang in his heart. Point 2. What do you want? 2. This was the meekest thing that Yin Qinshan could say. Point 2. An apology? I want you to be sorry, too. Liang Yinsheng waited for Yin Qinshan to speak. However, it was clear he would rather just stare at her than he would apologize. Point 2. How about we change expression, too? Liang Yinsheng touched her chin and said, how about you smile sincerely and from the bottom of your heart, too? This request. Yin Qinshan thought to himself. Point 2. He was stunned by her words. Point 2. The silence continued. Point 2. You're done laughing? Yin Qinshan said impatiently. Point 2. Your face didn't even twitch, too. Laugh? Smile? How do I make the expression from the bottom of my heart? He thought. Point two. It was funny. Liang Yunsheng had crossed his line time and time again. In Qinshin really laughed in his heart. Point two. Had anyone else who talked to him like that, had asked him to apologize, to smile, their situation would end up worse than Sheng Nua's. Point two. Go home, In Qinshan told Liang Yunsheng, grabbing her wrist and turning her around. Point two. Go home. Liang Yunsheng staggered. Didn't you say that Enziming would pick me up, too? I'm not in the mood to stay here any longer, In Qinshan said with a sigh. Point two. Yunsheng, too. Yue ran up behind In Qinshan. Today is my birthday, too. Only then did it all click in Liang Yunsheng's head that the birthday banquet was prepared for Yue. Point two. This was the supposed upper-class and prestigious family. Liang Yunsheng couldn't help but sigh to herself. Point two. Happy birthday. Liang Yunsheng revealed a big smile. Before she could finish her words, however, she was pulled away by In Qinshan. Point two. Yue remained rooted in place, watching as Liang Yunsheng and In Qinshan left. Thank you, he said quietly. I hope we can meet again, too. Asterisk. The night might as well have been any other night for In Qinshan. For Liang Yunsheng, however, it was a huge adventure. Point two. In sleep, she began dreaming. A very particular, strange dream. A little scary, but also beautiful. Point two. Liang Yunsheng wielded a long, red sword and defeated the ice-faced Qinshan dragon. She took him as her mount and rode him to dominate the world, beating up the villains who had bullied her. Point two. Little Chun did well. Liang Yunsheng lowered her head, touching Qinshan's to her own. Point two. She couldn't help but laugh. Point two. Then she woke up. It was strange. Hao Qing did not remind her to wake up. Point two. The housekeeper always paid the most attention to her work and rest. Point two. After washing up, Liang Yunsheng went downstairs. Sir said that you were too tired after last night, so he let you sleep a little longer. Hao Chun said with an odd laugh. He had already prepared breakfast for her. Point two. Please don't laugh so weirdly. You make it sound like a bad thing. Liang Yunsheng shuddered and crossed her arms. Point two. But the key thing was two. Is In Qinshan home, too? Without waiting for Hao Chang to answer, In Qinshan moved up to the dining table and pulled out a chair. Point two. What? You don't want me to be at home? In Qinshan said from the end of the table. He picked up his knife and fork and slowly raised his eyes. We really need to settle the matter about last night. We will punish those who deserve punishment. Punish? What could you want to punish me for? Liang Yunsheng thought to herself. Point two. The image of Sheng Nua's face from the night before flooded her mind again. Point two. Liang Yunsheng widened her eyes, looking as innocent as possible. Point two. What on earth had happened to her? Did she sleepwalk last night? But wasn't it In Qinshan that wronged her and not the other way around? 2. The one who should be punished should be young master, In himself. Let's not talk about this for now. Breakfast is more important anyway. In Qinshan gestured towards the food in front of Liang Yunsheng. Point two. But if I don't explain myself, I won't be able to have a good breakfast anyway. Liang Yunsheng thought. Point two. She tried her best to remain calm. It was just In Qinshan. At worst, she would just have to deal with whatever came her way. It was more important to fill her stomach. Point two. At home, Liang Yunsheng had been filling her stomach with soy milk, youtiao, eggs, and biscuits every day. But since moving in with In Qinshan, it had become milk, fried eggs, bacon, and oatmeal. Fortunately, she still had her favorite puffs. Had it not been for them, it would have been unbearable. Point two. Liang Yunsheng cut a chunk of fried egg and moved to put it into her mouth. Point two. Wait, two. Liang Yunsheng froze. Point two. In Qinshan's chair scraped against the ground as he stood to move to her side. He reached out his hand to Hao Cheng, who respectfully handed him 2 thick books. Point two. Before she could even put her fork back down, In Qinshan placed the 2 books on her head and straightened her body. Point two. You may start eating now, too. How am I supposed to eat like this? Liang Yunsheng thought. She did not dare to move her neck. She tried her best to keep her shoulders flat and her back straight. Point two. Eating etiquette is not just about the mouth, In Qinshan said as he sat back down, touching his lips with the silver fork in his hand. Point two. Liang Yinsheng only managed one more bite with the books on her head, her trembling stopping her from continuing. Point 2. Being a socialite was going to be harder than she first thought. 2. Looking at Liang Yunxing's obedient actions and her expression, Yin Qinshin's own expression lifted. Point 2. You must do this every day and at every meal from now on. I look forward to your results in a month's time. 2. Liang Yinsheng wished she could slap Yin Qinshin in the face with one of the books. Point 2. But she did not want Yin Qinshin to look down on her more than he already did. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng maintained her straight posture for the rest of the meal, finishing the rest of her breakfast. Surprisingly, she felt pretty good. Point 2. As she swallowed the last mouthful of cream puff, the long arm opposite her pushed another puff in front of her. Point 2. Too sweet, she said, shaking her head. Point 2. She didn't care to stand on ceremony with him, but his sudden change in expression said something to her that sent a shiver through her body. She picked the puff up and ate it. Point 2. Now, let's calculate the account for last night, Yin Qinshin said. Point 2. Yin Qinshin looked at Liang Yunsheng and folded his arms briefly before putting them on the table, resting his chin in one hand. Let's see, eavesdropping on my conversation with someone, meeting another man, putting your arm around young Master Yu's shoulder, becoming someone else's female companion, and almost getting molested. You've committed quite a number of crimes, done so many things that made me unhappy, he sighed and paused a beat. Shouldn't you do something to please me now, too? Woo! Liang Yinsheng almost choked on her puff. Point 2. You like sweets. Yin Qinshin stood and took out a ball-shaped chocolate from the snack box to the side of him. Once he reached Liang Yinsheng, he removed the books from her head. Point 2. His clean and slender fingertips held the round chocolate ball and pressed it close to her soft lips. Liang Yinsheng stared at him in a daze. As he moved, she slowly opened her little red mouth and held the chocolate between her lips. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng could do nothing but blink. Point 2. In a daze, Yin Qinshin gave Liang Yinsheng the words in his heart. Point 2. It's because you're so dumb that people want to bully you even more. 2. Yin Qinshin bent down and continued to push the chocolate ball. Only this time, he didn't use his fingers. Liang Yunxing's body told her to pull back, but she couldn't move. Point 2. She didn't know what a girl needed to do to please a man. Point 2. The word please was too evocative. Despite everything, she never saw it coming. Point 2. Yin Qinshin held the back of her head as her body tried to retreat, keeping her in place. Point 2. As their lips touched, the dark chocolate slipped into her mouth. Point 2. She felt her face heat up. She'd never had such intimate contact with anyone. 2. Not even her family. Point 2. The Su family valued sons over daughters. They had always treated their eldest son as their treasure. This little daughter of theirs was like grass. Point 2. Since she was young, she had been fed sugar and clothed by her elder brother. Point 2. She didn't hate anyone. At least, not until father and mother Su threw her into the Liang family with no explanation. Point 2. Even if the Su family didn't love her in the pits of their hearts, they should have been able to learn to, over time. She never knew people could be so heartless, but that thought made her realize they could. 2. They didn't learn, however. They didn't have love. Not for her. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng tried to push Yin Qinshin away, but he was rooted to the ground. Point 2. She naively thought that this was the end, but in fact, it was just the beginning. She was far too inexperienced and was no match for Yin Qinshin. Point 2. The chocolate ball slowly span, invading every inch of her soft mouth. Point 2. The chocolate ball slowly melted. Because it was dark chocolate, it was not sweet. The combination of the sweetness and bitterness with Liang Yunxing's youthfulness created a special taste. A taste that would make even Yin Qinshin lose control. Point 2. 2. Yin Qinshin only let go of her once the entire chocolate was melted in their mouths. Point 2. Liang Yunxing's face was flushed red. Point 2. What are you doing, 2? This time she acted. She picked up the book and smashed it against Yin Qinshin's face. Point 2. Despite practically dodging the entire book, the corners still left a red mark on his face. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng didn't expect that she could actually hit him. She paused for a moment. Point 2. We agreed on the punishment for you. 2. In Qianxun said indifferently. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng looked up at In Qianxun and saw the wound on the side of his face. Her heart trembled as the faintest sense of guilt crept in. However, she was still the victim. Point 2. This was her first kiss, too, and it was snatched away by this man, too. You can punish me in any way you want, but tell me why you did it, too. I think it's okay to kiss your fiancé, In Qianxun explained, as if nothing unusual had happened. Point 2. Of course, how could I even try to discuss such a thing with such a self-centered person? Liang Yinxing thought. He has his own way of thinking about things, too. Don't think that I'm easy to fool just because I'm young. You just like to see me embarrassed, too. Perhaps she never cared about the fact she was kissed, but she just hated the feeling of being played by others. Point 2. If In Qianxun really kissed her because he liked her, Liang Yinxing wouldn't have been too sad, even though she didn't have feelings for him. Point 2. But unfortunately, things are not like that, too. In Qianxun kissed her and teased her like he was teasing a pet. Point 2. I'm sorry, I lost control. 2. Liang Yinxing stood up and ran back to her room. Point 2. In Qianxun touched his face and watched Liang Yinxing run upstairs. He stood there, thinking. Point 2. He turned to Hao Cheng. Help me find the sunglasses I used last time. 2. He had been hurt twice. Although the wounds were small, they were both on his face. Point 2. Other than Liang Yinsheng, there was no one else who could throw a tantrum at him like that. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng locked herself in her room. Her mind raced as thoughts fought one another. In Qianxun was really too much, but at the same time, she felt that she was making a mountain out of a molehill. Point 2. If her reaction was so intense, would In Qianxun treat her like an ignorant kid? 2. Should she leave her room? 2. Is In Qianxun outside? 2. If he goes out, what should I say to him? Liang Yinxing thought. Point 2. The air was going to be thick. There was no denying that. Point 2. A knock at her door dispelled all the thoughts in her head. Point 2. Knock, knock, knock. 2. 3 polite knocks. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng opened the door to the view of the smiling Hao Cheng. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng, are you still angry? He asked. Point 2. Liang Yinxing's face flared red again. Mr. Hao Cheng had watched the whole event unfold. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng, don't mind him too much. Although he looks aggressive and shrewd, he actually has no experience when it comes to love. 2. That has nothing to do with me. Liang Yinxing blinked as she tried to make sense of Hao Cheng's words. Point 2. I can actually feel that since you moved in. Miss Yinsheng, Mr. is very happy with you. 2. What do you mean by that? We're not going to be in love, 2. She would not have such thoughts about such a terrifying person. Point 2. Although she did not know why In Qianxun insisted on marrying into the Liang family, Liang Yinxing remembered that he had already mentioned it to the Liang family before he knew her. It really did have nothing to do with her. Point 2. Whether that's true or not, as a servant who cares about his master, I hope that you can spend more time with him on account that I have always taken care of you. 2. Liang Yinsheng paused, mind racing to come up with a decent answer. You don't have to say that. I will, was what came out. Point 2. She really hoped that In Qianxun would be happier, regardless of whether he was an evil person or not. Point 2. He was the only person who stood up for her when she was alone and helpless. He said that he wanted to help her. By the way, Mr. said that you can take a day off today. You can go anywhere you want. The car is already parked outside for you, too. Really, too. Just the thought that she wouldn't be forced to learn anything for a single day filled her with such hope. Point 2. She was like a little bird that had been let out of its cage. She changed her clothes and flew out of the villa happily. She didn't even care that she wouldn't see In Qianxun. Point 2. However, when she opened the car door, too, In Qianxun, too, he was wearing a white casual suit that different from his usual formal attire. He wore brown Gucci sunglasses on his face. His bangs were not combed, but they were casually scattered in front of his forehead, making him look gentler than he did normally. Point 2. Get in the car, he ordered. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng didn't understand what he was trying to do. She remained stood. Point 2. Didn't we agree that I can go anywhere, too? Yes, but we didn't say that I couldn't follow you, too. Liang Yinsheng balled her fists by her side. Point 2. You've probably forgotten the most important purpose of staying with me. In Qianxun turned his face and looked at Liang Yinxing. Point 2. Purpose 2. To cultivate a relationship with your fiancé. 2. To cultivate a relationship with your fiancé. 2. Liang Yinsheng was stunned into inaction by this sentence. Point 2. In Qinshin's words had good intentions, however, so she could not refute him. Point 2. Are we going to the Liang family or the Su family? She asked. Point 2. As if he could tell what she was thinking, In Qinshin spoke first. Point 2. He had seen through her intentions. Thankfully, he did not know what she was really thinking. Point 2. Neither, he said. Liang Yinsheng pursed her lips, tilted her head, and smiled. Driver, drive to number 35 North Bridge Street, the delicious beef noodle restaurant on the left of the big red door, she ordered. Point 2. Although Yin Qinshan didn't fully pursue the reason for Liang Yinsheng's request, he could not help but ask. Point 2. Did you really decide this would be the place for our first date? 2. Don't define this as a date, okay? You were the one who insisted on coming along to where I wanted to go. 2. Shouldn't a guy be the one who defines on his own initiative? Watching the sunrise, the sunset, and the stars at night? Thousands of roses, a candlelit dinner. 2. Such simple words. Yet Liang Yinsheng couldn't help but feel defeated. Point 2. A date. Is that so, too? Boss, that's right. The driver chimed in with. Point 2. After getting his answer, Yin Qinshan frowned thoughtfully and nodded. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng had no feelings for the Liang family, not even over being pushed out of the door by them in the end. Point 2. As for the Su family, 2. Although she still had memories in her heart, they were just that, memories. Her longing for the past had long been extinguished. Point 2. It was unbelievable that Liang Yinsheng still cared about her past self, especially when the car had just pulled up to a noodle shop. Point 2. The shop was where she worked. Brother and sister Wang, the couple from the noodle shop, took special care of her. They even proposed to sponsor her to go back to school. However, she was afraid she would never be able to repay such a favor, so she refused. Point 2. She was tricked by the Su family to go to the Liang family, so she never had time to properly leave her job. Point 2. Oh, thank God. Yinsheng, your brother and I have been so worried about you. 2. Sorry to make you worry. 2. While Liang Yinsheng and Sister Wang chatted, Yin Qinshan walked into the noodle shop and looked at the shop from top to bottom. The place was very small, so he felt bored almost immediately. He found his way to stand behind Liang Yinsheng. Point 2. This is Yinsheng's boyfriend. Annie Wang revealed the gossipy expression that middle-aged women usually had. He's so tall and handsome, too. In this face-oriented world, as long as one of the couple was good-looking, even if the other was expressionless, they would still be loved. Point 2. Annie Wang, no. Liang Yinsheng protested. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng thought about it, but she didn't know how to properly explain Yin Qinshan's identity. Point 2. Yes, she's mine, too. Hearing Liang Yinsheng's denial, Yin Qinshan leaned over and reached out to stop her from leaning into his arms, looking domineering. Point 2. Quick, sit, sit, sit. Annie Wang will treat you to noodles today. Annie Wang beamed. Point 2. No need to be busy. Liang Yinsheng tried to stop Annie Wang, but failed. Point 2. Given what he had previously shown, Liang Yinsheng assumed that Yin Qinshan would dislike the dirt and mess of the restaurant. Point 2. But not only did Yin Qinshan sit down, he also ate a bowl of noodles with relish. Point 2. I didn't expect you to eat, Liang Yinsheng said to him in a low voice. Point 2. If this kind of food is considered bad, then it would be hell on earth when you're so hungry that you can only snatch leftovers from wild dogs. 2. Liang Yinsheng felt an unconcealable hostility from his body the moment he said these words. Point 2. Could it be that he was referring to himself with those words? 2. Snatching leftovers from wild dogs? 2. What had Yin Qinshan experienced? 2. For a moment, she really wanted to know about his past. Point 2. She wanted to know the kinds of things he had encountered and the people he had met. Point 2. She knew that it wasn't the time nor the place to ask, however. Point 2. But she knew that she was not one of them, one of the wild dogs. Point 2. By the way, Yinsheng, someone called Su Qihong often came here to look for you recently. Given that his surname was Su, I paid attention to him. In Annie Wang's heart, Liang Yinsheng's surname was still Su. Point 2. Su. Qihong, too. The eldest son of the Su family, too. Liang Yinsheng was overcome by a feeling she couldn't explain. Point 2. They weren't close when they were young, and that was down to the way their parents treated them. Point 2. She herself had dropped out of school to work at home, but Su Chihong was sent abroad by her parents to study. She was not a person without feelings. Point 2. Every time she thought of the good things Su Chihong had eaten abroad, she hurt. He nourished his brain and strengthened his body. All she could do was her best to survive. After finishing high school, she still felt some resentment. Point 2. But why did he come to look for her? 2. She couldn't find a single reason. Point 2. It couldn't be that he came to ask for the money the Su family had spent raising her, right? 2. With those thoughts plaguing her mind, she walked out of the noodle shop. Point 2. Come back to the Liang family with me, Yin Qianshun said as he got back into the car. Point 2. I don't really want to go, she told him. Point 2. Since she had escaped from there once, she didn't exact want to go back. Liang Yunsheng sat beside Yin Qianshun. Point 2. What I said wasn't a question, Yin Qianshun said coldly. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng was stunned. She almost forgot his nature because of the warmth she felt from the shop. Point 2. Someone like Yin Qianshun would never initiate a marriage for the sake of marriage alone. He had other motives. It was obvious that he wanted to use the Liang family for something. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng decided to remain silent and comply with Yin Qianshun's request. Clearly, he didn't care about his own feelings. Point 2. The car parked up at the Liang family home. Liang Yunsheng vaguely remembered the first time she met Yin Qianshun. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng prepared herself as they entered the house. Yin Qianshun would have informed the Liang family they were coming over. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng felt schemed against, disappointed. But she also felt she was being unreasonable. What was there to be disappointed about? 2. But she didn't have the time to think about that, as there was another man sat in the living room of the Liang family home. Point 2. Yunsheng, too. He wore a white shirt and gray trousers. Although simple, they were all brand names. The man rushed to Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Before she could dodge him, he hugged her tightly in his arms. Point 2. Yunsheng, come back with me, too. As soon as the man finished speaking, she felt a gust of wind brush past her face. The man that hugged her was pushed a few steps back. Point 2. No! Liang Yunsheng screamed, hugging Yin Qianshun's arm. She knew that, with his temper, he would not stop until the man stood up. Is my brother, too. Su Chihong stood where he was and wiped the wound on the corner of his lips. His phoenix-like eyes were fierce. You're Yin Qianshun? He asked. Point 2. Yin Qianshun didn't care about Su Chihong's words. He didn't even look at him. He merely pulled Liang Yunsheng behind him, preventing any further contact. Point 2. Su Chihong rushed forward and blocked in front of Yin Qianshun. Are you declaring your ownership? Announce. Yin Qianshun didn't spare Su Chihong a glance. She belonged to me in the first place, he said through his nose. Point 2. What's going on? Liang's parents, who were now standing next to him, wore shocked expressions on their faces. Point 2. They had always heard that Yin Qianshun was a vicious person, but now they had witnessed him with their own eyes. Point 2. They didn't expect him to be this way. They didn't expect that he would disregard safety and be so reckless. He dared to fight in front of them. 2. Maybe didn't need to care about the Liang family at all. Point 2. It's nothing. It's a misunderstanding, that's all. 2. Liang Yunsheng quickly stepped forward to try and smooth things over. She tiptoed and raised her head close to Yin Qianshun's face. Don't be so sensitive. He's the brother of the Su family. If you're a real man, don't come near me or beat him up. 2. No. Yin Qianshun's face didn't look good. She couldn't tell whether it was because she was defending Su Chihong or what she had just said to him. Point 2. What do you mean, no? Yin Qianshun's simple answer blasted a hole in Liang Yunsheng's thoughts. Point 2. It's not that I didn't hit him for you. I just didn't like him. Yin Qianshun explained. Point 2. Was it really like that, too? Liang Yunsheng blinked. She knew herself well and knew that Yin Qianshun was indeed unhappy. Point 2. She remembered that Yin Qianshun had mentioned his things at the birthday party. That was what he meant, too. If someone tried taking something that belonged to them, they would find the person taking the thing extremely annoying. Point 2. Brother, Su Chihong, are you okay? Liang Yunsheng didn't know how to face Su Chihong. She tried her best to smile. Point 2. He was a protective brother, but as time passed, Liang Yunsheng sensed her parents' preference, so she couldn't be as close to Su Qihong as she wanted. Point 2. Su Qihong distanced himself from her, as she did to him. From that point, they became nothing more than polite strangers. Point 2. Why don't we let the brother and sister catch up? Young Master Yin, don't we have something important to discuss? Liang Yaosheng said with a smile, and walked to Yin Qinshin's side. Point 2. Yin Qinshin glanced at Liang Yunsheng and said nothing. He left her alone and entered the study with Liang Yaosheng. Point 2. So Liang Yunsheng and Su Qihong were left alone to catch up. Point 2. Yunsheng, too. The way Su Qihong looked at Liang Yunsheng made her very uncomfortable. Point 2. It was strange. Why had Su Qihong's personality changed, like he was a different person, too? Why? Liang Yunsheng started, before being interrupted. Point 2. Why don't you call me brother? Even if we're not related by blood, I can still be your brother. 2. Okay. Brother, are you okay with your injury? 2. Liang Yunsheng didn't want to talk to him, but she couldn't refuse him either. Point 2. Su Qihong touched his face when he heard Liang Yunsheng's words. He waved a dismissive hand her way. While I was in Country M, I often fought with those black devils. If I wasn't stronger, I would have died. 2. What Su Qihong said might well have been true. Yin Qinshin's strength was great. She witnessed it when he smashed Sheng Nua's face. She knew that, although Su Qihong's face was also badly beaten, he was already strong if he could stand. Point 2. I came back to China to look for you. Su Qihong reached out and took Liang Yunsheng's small hands. Point 2.